Hey, welcome. This is Dr. John Bush Process. We are continuing our journey on target research. Love to figure out a way to come to some conclusion about vacated targets. I do believe there's a lot of data to plow through, and that's what I've been doing since lesson 142, and I will continue here. This is a short lesson. I decided to break up my positional targeting distribution. I believe looking at these metrics just gives you a view of certainly a team's historical changes over time for their running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. And one would think that that impacts what may occur in 2022. At least that's the idea, of using the past to predict the future. As in predictions, you know, we don't have a time machine, so we're left with reading the tea leaves, and this is another aspect of that. I don't claim that this is 100% anywhere close to that, but the way I use this kind of data is to invite myself to do more research for 2022, looking at, for instance, ADP values, looking at depth charts, considering changes the team has made. Just kind of sets, kind of like putting salt on your uh, food there, just kind of enhances the chewing a little bit. So this is the research chewing, and we're going to try to enhance that. So that's what all this is. This is not to be blindly followed, as of course any metrics one could say the same thing about. I think that gets lost a little bit. Uh, it's anybody that's out there in Twitter land and whatnot, they're just trying to read the tea leaves too. They may not reveal that's kind of what it is. They want to seem to be knowing probably more than they do. I understand that. Everybody wants to appear like they know everything, but I think it's best when you're seeking knowledge is not to get messed up and start chewing on things that are not really the historical and not really metric driven. In other words, opinions and whatnot. I like to be grounded in metrics, and that's kind of how I approach things. I believe it's a starting point for deeper thinking, and I hope you, with all these lessons, or fact that you're listening to me, probably says you agree with that. So with those caveats, let me knock this out. I think I've got a couple of these, and then I've got some more lessons coming. But anyway, this is quickly how I'm going to go through 4 teams at a time here. So this is just quick tabular data. The team, the position, and the differences between year to year. So when I have DIF, that's difference 14 to 13. That's 2014 versus the preceding year, the previous year, 2013. And I figure out the targets and convert it to a target distribution and then the change in that distribution. So certainly 100%, right, of the targets is what was generated. I think the caveat for all this is, targets change year to year on teams and position. So this data doesn't tell you the target differences year to year, it just tells you whatever targets generate, how they were distributed, and then, of course, how they changed. And if you get a sense of how teams function, and obviously the further out you get, the probably least impactful that data is. But I like to look at a big landscape view of the data, not just uh, last year. And there's no cherry picking here. I see a lot of critique, people talking and cracking on others about cherry picking. Here's the data. There is no cherry picking here. What I have done, though, and I think this is an interesting way to do it, is I took all the teams. You're only seeing these 4 here. But I took this whole list, went through and did conditional formatting, and looked at the 9 years, upper 20% of changes and the lower 20% of changes. So I'm trying to show you the extremes. So anywhere you see green was a really interesting extreme positive change, and a red would be extreme negative. So just seeing teams that have extremes might give you some thinking about 2022, right? Teams that are in flux and change, that's important to know versus teams that were kind of pretty much within the norms, right? That's, kind of what one might think and take away. So from a broad view, that's one approach. Another broad metric is looking at the 9-year changes and looking at the median of those changes. So we have here RBTE and WR, and over 9 years, pretty much it hasn't changed. There's been some extremes, but overall, if you look at the median change, pretty much not a lot happening in Arizona. It is what it is. In other words, you can say, hey, things have not been moving high up or down. Pretty much what we saw last year probably is going to be what you'll get this year. Tight ends have moved up a little bit, 1%. And I do note that last year was a +6 having Ertz. So this is the first time that we've seen something really positive occurring in Arizona with tight ends. That hasn't been the case. And I don't know if getting Ertz, finally they got tired of the sadness that has been their tight end usage. Maybe Murray was pushing to have that kind of relief valve, but I think Ertz is going to continue to play a role there, and I think that +6% is implying that. So I think he's definitely a later tight end target that has some inherent value here. On the other hand, 9 years, notice the wide receivers have dropped by about 3%. So there's been a decline. There's been actually some really interesting extremes in Arizona. But in the last 2 years, things have not gone well for Murray. And this year with Hopkins being suspended, that, and I know they brought in some other players and whatnot and rookies and things. But right now, that's, you never know. It's a guess. All I can tell you is that bringing Ertz in seems like a way to at least balance out the sadness that has been the wide receivers in Arizona. So in 2022, one thinks that there could be some issues with wide receivers, and I'm not sure how deep some of those deeper plays are going to be for us. I'm certainly not reaching too deep into that pool there, given kind of these last couple years' trends. Certainly, if I am going to do some research, I will have that backdrop knowing there is an issue, right? It's like, hey, it hasn't kind of worked out in the last couple of years, so that does kind of concern me. Okay, So now I think by me going hardcore through Arizona, that you kind of see at least how I kind of view things. I don't just dwell on the norms, right? I look at the extremes. So that to me, inspires, thinking for this year. So I urge you to look at this. This is the kind of thing where you can, freeze the screen and just stare, take notes, think about it. What is it telling us? Even if you wanted to kind of have the latest Arizona depth chart and just kind of make some notes there in your draft notes, this is some good metrics to at least frame some of your research here coming in there. So that's what I would do thinking about that. Atlanta in 9 years, and so I'm usually going to start with the 9 year, just gives me a big look. Nothing really is going on there. But last year we really had Pitts going up by plus 11%. Goodness, they turned to him. And Patterson at plus 9. That's because Ridley was so sad and dropped 20%. The whole wide receivers. And of course, Gage left. He used his ticket out of there. And they brought in Edwards. They brought in Drake London. So I think those are getting some say. But they did lose Ryan. So there's a lot of moving parts here. I think right now I would be feeling, here's my feelings based on metrics, that though, Patterson is definitely on my radar, and certainly Pitts as well, just for the targets. He didn't get a lot of touchdowns, so one might hope that he puts that together with some more touchdowns and targets, and he increases there. I think the wide receivers worry me. Drake is, London is a rookie, and I guess Braylon Edwards is almost a free square late, so he may be worth a grab on the deep bench. I think that is definitely what the metrics are pointing me to there. Baltimore, pretty much 9 year, nothing has really happened yet. If you look at, they've had some really extremes, but nothing that I would say is so extreme other than the wide receivers have had really ups and downs here. And last year, things were kind of calming down. And so nothing really strikes me dramatically here in Baltimore. I think we get what we got last year. At least that might be a takeaway there. So nothing that, in other words, probably ADP is telling you about what you're going to get out of that. I'm not looking to, other than Andrews, I'm not looking to acquire any of them, certainly reaches, but, maybe Dobbins late, probably later than he'll go, and maybe some of the late wide receivers, maybe. I don't know. I'm underwhelmed by that depth chart. Buffalo, of course, in the last 9 years have had some running back issues, so that's not good as far as targets. Tight ends, +2, and wide receivers really haven't changed much. And last year was kind of same old, same old. A little drop in the wide receivers, but nothing dramatic. I will say that Allen has been passing a lot. So I think Diggs and whatnot are going to be about what you think they are. People debating Gabriel Davis went down a little bit in targets last year, 4%. So does Davis Prosper. I'm kind of ho-hum with this whole thing. I think they're pretty much who you think they are, and probably will be drafted accordingly there. What else? Next four. Carolina, lots of issues here. Overall, they've had tight end issues historically, kind of real extremes actually. They've kind of hit or miss. And last year, with not a lot happening, it's my French Bulldog. Hey! Plus 13%. I'm still not enamored with the tight ends. I do not like the extremes up and down, and given all the new situations, I'm not looking deep in the tight end ranks there. McCaffrey, if he makes it through, is going to be what you think he is. He can't be pretty much anything more. He's taken at his ceiling. It is what it is. With he's injured, he was the whole thing was 4. They did bring in Foreman, and so I think Chuba Hubbard was underwhelming. So I think that if I draft CMC, I'm definitely wanting to take those two here. What else? Wide receivers. Moore is probably what you think he is. Anderson really did not do well with all the changes, Darnold and Newton and everybody. So now he's going to be asked again to potentially be dealing with new quarterbacks. But he has dropped a lot, so you don't have to pay for him. I'm picking him up in some deep leagues and maybe best ball, just trying to collect on occasion, because I do think he could boom and bust this year, but I'm not reaching for him. And I guess that's about all I say here. It's very interesting. Look at all the changes over time there. Chicago went down a little bit in their target. Part of that, I think, was Montgomery, Khalil Herbert. They just weren't, Fields wasn't passing a lot to the running backs compared to what he's done. Cole Kmet, nothing really happening there, a little bit positive. Wide receivers, Robinson wasn't a fit, moved him, so kind of who's left. But overall, not a lot happening last year if you look at any kind of dramatic changes. So it's kind of a ho-hum for me on a lot of those there. I'm not sure the metrics are pointing one way or the other. Cincinnati, I think you can say the same thing. Not a lot over the 9 years really happening. A little bit positive with the tight ends, a little bit negative with wide receivers. Burrow was a little bit inconsistent. Mixon was Mixon, so again, nothing dramatic there. Maybe a deep, what is it, Hooper? Is he on Cincinnati now? He might be a deep tight end 2 play there, maybe. Nothing really dramatic going on. Cleveland, same thing, not a lot of changes. Now, over time, 9 years, the running backs and wide receivers have prospered, but they've been really extremes in 2020 there. Look at all the changes, and they were pretty much relying on their tight end there. And that changed around, so went down -4. And last year was, Chubb was getting a little bit happening there, +2. Hunt was hurt. I guess he's coming back. They paid Dearness Johnson. I'm picking him up as a handcuff. Definitely in a late round, he's worth a stab. The one I'm worried about is, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be right now. Still lots of controversy with Watson. Who knows? So that really puts Cooper is there, but I'm not sure I would, draft him early. I would definitely take him more late than anything. I'm not sure he might be a safe wide receiver 3, maybe a gamble 2 type. Nothing dramatic I'm doing or the metrics are pointing me to do for 2022. A lot of uncertainty there in that team as well. Dallas was Dallas. Not a lot happening in 9 years. Not a lot in the last 2 years, really. Schultz, people were, hey, he's this. Well, plus 3.5. That's okay, but it's not like he's a Pitts at plus 11. So, I think you can take him, but I don't know his ceiling is as great as you might think he is. Wide receivers went down a little bit. I think Dak was not delivering like he should. Certainly, Elliott and Pollard seems to be a 1A, 1B. At least the public likes Zeke and thinks they'll get another year out of him. But Pollard probably is the pass catching, but Zeke catches. So I'm kind of on those two. I'll take them at the right price only. Gallup is the only person that I'm taking just deep and late, trying to get a bargain there in case, he heals up and we get something, but I'm not sure Lamb is going to return his value. Hard to say. Denver, lots of things happening there. Last year, not a lot up or down. 9 year, nothing really happening. I will say that Javonte Williams was catching those passes, but Gordon wasn't going away. But a plus 4, that's because Williams was really proving himself in his rookie year. So the public is really thinking he takes over. I don't know with Gordon there. It may be a 2-for-1 kind of thing. And Javonte may be more of a dramatic red zone play. Wilson has never had a kind of a 1A, 1B thing. He likes those dominant running backs, at least at Seattle with Lynch and whatnot. So I'm not sure how he's going to respond to this dynamic duo there of Gordon and Javonte. I'm taking Gordon just because he's going later, and I feel like, he could have some play. We're underestimating that. Tight end, there's lots, you think Albert O, and then all of a sudden, maybe not. Wilson does love his tight ends, but trying to figure out exactly how that's going to go adds to the uncertainty. Wide receivers went down minus 4%. Injuries and chemistry. One is wondering, is it Judy? Is it Sutton? We're like, we don't know. They don't know. Not reaching for either one of those two. I'll take them if they drop in, but probably I would love to grab them as 3. But I'm not sure they'll go there. Detroit, not a lot happening. Overtime with Stanford, over the 9 years, been a decrease in the wide receivers there over time. But last year really wasn't much happening. I know Amon-Ra came on late, but he was streaky and had a few good games. But everybody's awake to it, so I don't know the value is there. People talking Hawkinson, everybody's forgot about him, so now he's a value. I don't know. Don't know. I'm not saying he's not going to deliver what you draft him, but I'm not necessarily looking for him. We'll take him if he drops. Swift, I think it's going to be a running through Swift kind of thing. I think, who's it? Williams. Whoever the handcuff is, you definitely want. So grab that all day long, handcuff for Swift. Especially if you draft Swift, you definitely want the handcuff. And I'm not sure if they've got a running back rookie that may be worth a play too down the road late. At least keep them on speed dial. Green Bay, last 9 years, the RBs have gone up, but the WRs have declined. However, last year it was the other way around. So they were declining RBs. People were thinking that Dillon is going to, encroach more on Jones. I think it's kind of like a Dallas situation. I'm not sure that Dillon is as valuable as you think relative to Jones, but they may cut each other's values by a minus 4.5% in targets. So that never strengthens my desire for Dillon here. Jones, I think if I can take him late, he'd be a good RB2 for me. That's about the best you'll do for him. Wide receivers, Adams is gone. So who is going to collect? People thinking Lazard. Cobb's still around. I don't know. We might be surprised on the pecking order there. I'm not looking to grab any of them early, but I'll take some of them late just to try to have, because you figure Rodgers will find it. It may be back to maybe a Tanyan year. I don't know. But I think it's going to run through the running backs again. That's kind of how they were playing a lot more. So I think Rodgers as a quarterback is dropping because people think he's going to pass less and do more, and Green Bay's going to do more rushing, which may be the case. We'll find out. What else? Okay, Houston. Houston really hadn't done a lot in 9 years, pretty much ho-hum, but last year really picked up in RB targets with Burkhead and whatnot. They got Marlon Mack. One thinks they brought him in to continue that RB tradition, so he is definitely on my radar. Tight end, Blevin is a tight end 2 type, nothing more. Other than Cooks, nobody else really stepped up. Care what people say. So it's Cooks, and it's a you guess them. And the overall, they declined by 6%. So probably one of these cases where I'm taking Cooks at his price or a little lower, hopefully. But I'm not thinking anybody else at that point. I'm moving on. And I'm going to pick in other depth charts, not Houston. But I will harvest some of the RBs, certainly Mack, and maybe some of the deeper plays for a handcuff type there. Indianapolis didn't do a lot last year. Wentz couldn't put it together. Declined a little bit in RB and tight ends. Increased a little bit in the wide receivers, but overall nothing dramatic when you look at an extreme. One thinks Ryan would help the wide receivers, Pittman. People are thinking that's who's going to benefit. He was kind of hit or miss. Hopefully some improvement. Hard to tell. I'm not reaching for him, but I'll take him if he, is at the right price. Definitely in WR2 type for sure. The Taylor, again, it figures he's the main show. but you definitely want his handcuffs, which is probably Nyheim Hines and whoever else. It won't be just Nyheim Hines if Taylor goes down. So whoever's the next, it's going to be a committee to replace Taylor. Be aware of that. Tight ends, I think there's some deep. Mo Alley-Cox, whatnot, are definitely tight end two types that in best ball and whatnot could be your friend. And I don't know about anybody other than Pittman. I'm kind of thinking I'm looking elsewhere for depth past Pittman. Jacksonville, overall, in 9 years, hasn't done a lot. It's all been negatives every year. Overall, they haven't really prospered. Last year, I will say that Lawrence really picked up the passing. One thinks Marvin Jones might be a play. People have kind of forgotten about him. He may be your good WR3 type, maybe a 4. If you can pick him up late, I think he has value. It's hard to guess on the other ones. Tight ends, declined last year. I don't know. They're up and down on tight ends. I'm going to let you draft their tight end. People are thinking ETN is the show, and Robinson is late, kind of almost a 2-to-1 kind of scenario. I think Robinson's the play late for handcuff, and he should get some activity. And you have no clue what ETN's going to do or not. I mean, everybody's thinking, but is that something to risk? He's not your RB1. These are not the RB droid you're looking for here. I would move on here and pick Robinson up late. That's how I would do it. Okay, the last one here in this lesson, Kansas City. Overall, they've increased in 9 years 2%. Nothing really happening in RB and tight ends. Kelsey can't go up much further, so we're all drafting him at his ceiling. So we're hoping for a good. I definitely draft him in the first round in the tight end premium, figuring all the targets are going to balance out some things. We'll see. The running backs, people were thinking Solaire, but they got Jones. It's not like they were just sold on Solaire, so it's probably a 2-for-1. I'm picking Jones up late. I think I'll let you draft Solaire. Juju Smith, you think he should be the show? And given the passing with Mahomes, you think that Nicole Hardman or some of the other ones have some play? I think late drafting in this depth chart, I will definitely look for some fire sales here after Juju, and will take Juju as my WR2 all day long. Okay, it seems to be the role that sets up for him. So, of course, everybody knows that. So his ADP is probably going to increase. So, if you're thinking, I got to have him as my one, well, I'd draft him now. I wouldn't wait till the end of August, because God knows what his ADP will be then. Okay, that's my roll through half the league, I guess it was, right? 16 teams, yeah. So use this as metrics that point us to some initial hypothesis, questions, thinking for your research, driving our drafting here. I didn't just spell it out for you because I'm making you, hopefully teaching you how to chop the wood, okay? And if you're, of course, if you're casual, I know all this has blown your head up and you're not listening, and that's fine. If you are, I give you yay, good for you trying to move ahead. thanks for those that listen. I appreciate the love I feel through the computer screen here. No, not a lot of you. I know. I don't care. I'm not, there's no money in this business. This is just stuff that I do for me anyway. And I said, well, might as well just run my mouth. That's what I've been doing as a university professor in biology. So that's what I do. So I'm playing to my strengths of running my mouth. So I hope you enjoy my metrics and all my metric fun, right? It's fun. Okay, come back. We'll finish the next 16 teams next lesson. Woo woo.